On the evening of August the 21st, 1986, Ephraim Che, a farmer from the highlands of northwest Cameroon, heard a great rumbling in the distance like rolling thunder. Emerging from his hut, he peered down the mountain to the moonlit waters of Lake Nyos, a small but deep body of water nestled in the crater of an extinct volcano. Though a strange white mist now hung over the lake, otherwise everything looked normal. Suddenly overcome by a feeling of illness, Ephraim returned to his hut and went to bed. The following morning, Ephraim rose and began making his way down the mountain. It was not long before he realized something was amiss. The waterfall that cascaded out of one end of the lake had suddenly gone dry, while the waters of the lake itself, normally crystal blue, had turned an ugly rust brown. Then he noticed the eerie silence. Not a single bird was singing or insect buzzing. Spooked, Ephraim began running down the valley. He soon came upon Halima Suli, a cowherd, shrieking in grief and horror. Scattered around her were the bodies of more than 30 family members and 400 heads of cattle. Around 9 p.m. the previous evening, the same time Ephraim had heard the distant rumble, a great wind had roared down the valley through Suli's house, causing all the people and animals around her to suddenly lose consciousness. They never woke up. But worse was yet to come. In the nearby village of Nyos, all but 2 of the 1,000 inhabitants perished in the night, felled where they stood, sat, or lay. Hundreds more were killed in villages up to 25 kilometers away. Those who survived remained unconscious for up to 36 hours before coming to. Many, upon seeing the bodies of their dead loved ones strewn about them, chose to commit suicide. In all, 1,746 people died that night, along with 3,500 cattle and countless birds, insects, fish, and other wild animals. It was only days later that wildlife finally returned to the area when vultures and other scavengers arrived to feast on the corpses. But what had caused this horrifying catastrophe? Today's episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Now, if you're like me and you need an all-in-one website platform to stand out and succeed online, you will love what Squarespace offer. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your own terms. So let's dive into some of the amazing features that make it so easy. First up, the Squarespace Blueprint. This guided design system offers professionally curated layouts and styling options, making it super simple to build a personalized online presence. Plus, with integrated SEO tools, your site gets discovered faster, bringing in more visitors. And then there's Fluid Engine. With its reimagined drag-and-drop technology, customizing every design detail is a breeze, whether you're on desktop or mobile. I use Squarespace to make my own website, and it was ridiculously easy, and it looks good. So why not? Squarespace even have flexible payment options, allowing you to accept credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and even offers Afterpay and ClearPay in eligible countries. This means your customers can buy now and pay later, making the checkout experience hassle-free. So if you're ready to take your website to the next level, head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/brainfood, and you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain by using the code BRAINFOOD. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring, and now back to today's episode. Almost immediately, rumors and speculation ran rampant. Some pointed to secret government weapons experiments, toxic waste dumped by corporations, or even ancient legends of evil spirits said to haunt the area. Others suspected toxic gases from a volcanic eruption. But as experts from around the world descended on Cameroon, a more surprising picture began to take shape. The invisible killer, it turned out, was Lake Nyos itself. Lake Nyos lies in the Oku volcanic plain, part of the Cameroon line of volcanoes stretching 1,600 kilometers northeast from the Gulf of Guinea to Lake Chad. As with all the volcanoes in the Cameroon line, except for Mount Cameroon, the volcanoes of the Oku Massif are now extinct, with 2 of the craters having filled with water to form Lake Nyos and Lake Manaun. Such crater lakes are typically small in area but extremely deep, with Lake Nyos only measuring 1.9 kilometers long and 1.2 kilometers wide, but bottoming out at 200 meters. Below this lies a tall volcanic pipe of porous debris from the last volcanic eruption, as well as a magma chamber 80 kilometers below the surface. While the crater is no longer connected to the magma chamber, gases from the magma can still percolate up through the fissures in the rock into the bottom of the lake. And chief among these gases is carbon dioxide. Due to the lake's great depth, the bottom is extremely cold, dark, and under high pressure, the perfect environment for storing large amounts of gas. Bubbles of carbon dioxide emerging from the rock below grow smaller and smaller as they rise through the water column, never reaching the surface as they are absorbed into the cold, high-pressure water. In most crater lakes, this buildup is not an issue, as seasonal temperature fluctuations create convection currents that carry water from the bottom of the lake to the top, safely releasing the trapped gas into the atmosphere. In equatorial regions like Cameroon, however, the temperature is fairly stable year-round and no such turnover occurs. Instead, carbon dioxide continues to build up for years or even centuries, forming a large supersaturated layer at the bottom of the lake. This gradual build-up creates a ticking time bomb, a bomb which went off on the evening of the 21st of August 1986. No one knows exactly what set off the bomb, with the leading theories being an underwater volcanic eruption, a landslide, or a small earthquake. Whatever the case, that disturbance triggered an upwelling of water from the lake bottom. As this plume rose, the change in pressure and temperature caused the carbon dioxide to bubble out of solution. These bubbles, in turn, entrained more water behind them, creating a positive feedback loop that caused all the carbon dioxide trapped in the lake to bubble out at once, a phenomenon known as limnic eruption. This eruption unleashed nearly 1 billion cubic meters of carbon dioxide, creating a tsunami that flattened vegetation around the lakeshore and caused the lake's water level to drop by a full meter. It also disturbed iron-rich sediments on the lake floor, which oxidized as it reached the more oxygen-rich upper layers, producing the dramatic color change once observed by Ephraim Che. Meanwhile, the carbon dioxide cloud grew to 100 meters high, spilled over the crater rim, and being heavier than air, flowed down the mountainside and into the twin valleys below at 72 kilometers per hour, smothering everything in its path. The silent, invisible killer engulfed the villages of Nyos, Cha, Fang, Saboom, and finally Mashi, traveling 25 kilometers before finally dissipating. Carbon dioxide is odorless and tasteless and produces unconsciousness at concentrations as low as 20%, so most victims died instantly and without warning, though some survivors reported smelling rotten eggs, indicating the presence of sulfur dioxide gas. Of the some 5,000 survivors, most were either standing on higher grounds or in poorly ventilated buildings, and thus inhaled only a sublethal concentration of gas. Nonetheless, many remained in comas for days, with 548 being admitted to hospital. Strangely, many of the victims' bodies were found to be covered in rashes and blisters, which were initially believed to be caused by acidic volcanic gases. Later, it was theorized that the marks were instead bed sores from the victims laying comatose for long periods before finally dying or regaining consciousness. However, these symptoms largely remain a mystery to this day. While the Lake Nyos disaster may seem like a freak occurrence, such incidents were not new to the region. Just a year before, on August 15, 1985, a limnic eruption from the smaller Lake Nyos, 100 kilometers southeast of Nyos, resulted in the deaths of 37 people. Indeed, anthropologists believe that local legends of evil spirits haunting crater lakes, as well as the tradition of certain ethnic groups like the Bafman of always building houses on high ground, derive from memories of past eruption events. Paleontologists even theorize that limnic eruptions, albeit on a much larger scale, have been responsible for several mass extinction events, such as the Permian-Triassic extinction of 252 million years ago, which saw the disappearance of nearly 80% of all life on Earth. But if such eruptions have happened in the past, then they will inevitably happen again in the future, unless preventative measures are taken. Shortly after the 1986 disaster, an international team of geologists and other experts began examining means of safely releasing the carbon dioxide trapped in Lake Nyos to prevent another tragedy. One proposal involved dropping explosives into the lake to shock the gas out of solution, but this was quickly rejected as it could damage the lake's thin walls, unleashing a deadly flood on the valleys below. Other proposed solutions included dumping vast quantities of calcium hydroxide or lime into the lake to neutralize the dissolved carbon dioxide, or digging tunnels into the bottom of the lake to drain out the gas-saturated water. However, all were rejected for being too expensive or logistically challenging. Instead, it was decided to sink a pipe to the bottom of the lake to allow the gas to escape gradually. But while several experimental setups were tested in the 1990s, a permanent solution was slow to materialize, largely due to a lack of support from the Cameroonian government and international disaster relief agencies. It wasn't until 1999 that the US Office of Foreign Disaster Assistance, or OFDA, came up with $433,000 to fund the project. In 2001, 15 years after the disaster, a French engineering team rowed out to the middle of the lake in rafts and sank a 15-centimeter diameter pipe 200 meters down to the gas-bearing layer. Immediately, a geyser of carbonated water shot out of the pipe at nearly 200 kilometers per hour and rose 50 meters into the air. Nearby Lake Nyos has 3 such pipes, one installed in 2003 and 2 in 2006, while solar-powered CO2 detectors installed around both lakes stand ready to warn the locals of any future gas releases. Yet despite these measures, experts remain wary. Some 5,500 tons of carbon dioxide seep into the lake every year, an influx the single vent pipe is just barely able to keep up with. However, no funding is forthcoming to install more pipes. As a result, there is still enough gas trapped at the bottom of Lake Nyos to cause another major disaster, endangering the lives of more than 10,000 people living around the volcano. There's also the flood risk posed by the lake's fragile walls, while experts have speculated that the venting pipe might actually trigger a future eruption by inducing turbulence in the lake bottom. As of this recording, however, no eruptions have been reported since 1986. But Lake Nyos and Manaun are not the only crater lakes susceptible to limnic eruption. There are 44 similar lakes in Cameroon's northwest province alone, and many more around the world, including in Quilatoa in Ecuador, Lake Ngozi in Tanzania, and Lake Montecchio in Italy. But most worrying of all is Lake Kivu, located on the border of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa. Measuring 2,700 square meters in area and 480 meters deep, Lake Kivu is more than 1,000 times larger and twice as deep as Lake Nyos, and it is thought to contain nearly 256 cubic kilometers of carbon dioxide and 65 cubic kilometers of methane, which, unlike carbon dioxide, is very flammable. Given that nearly 2 million people live near Lake Kivu, a Nyos-style eruption could trigger a natural disaster on a hitherto unheard-of scale. Even more frightening, studies of sediment layers suggest that the lake has already erupted between 7,000 and 8,000 years ago, meaning it might be due for another any day now. As a result, experts are closely monitoring the lake and developing strategies for safely bleeding off the gas, which, as a bonus, could be used to fuel a natural gas power plant. For now, however, the shadow of August 21st, 1986 looms over Lake Nyos and other crater lakes across Africa, a constant reminder of how unpredictable and deadly nature can be.